Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today and we're happy to be with you. Lindsey, nice to see you. I don't know about you, but I'm always totally thrown off by the time change when that happens, and I don't like it, and I wish they would just leave it alone and we'd be in the permanent mode where I don't like this one. I like this one less because it's dark when you get done with work at like 5 o'clock.
But I was quite pleasantly surprised to wake up and see the sun up with me. I get up kind of early and I was like, oh, this is nice.
I don't like getting up anyway, and having it be light or dark doesn't make any difference in my view.
It doesn't matter what time.
I would rather have more light at the end of the day. That's just me.
Yeah, Amber and I talked about this Friday, and it is certainly a point of contention. You know, Congress is currently debating about what they should do about it. So.
Yeah, I've been advising them for years. Just leave it alone, pick one, and stick with it.
Stick to it forever.
Changing helps no one.
All right, coming up on Rising, Democrats are criticizing President Trump for throwing a GATSBY-themed party while SNAP benefits are set to run out for millions of Americans.
About that old sport. Well, plus Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries told CNN's Jake Tapper that Zohran Mamdani was not the future of the Democratic Party.
And President Trump is lashing out at comedian Seth Meyers over a segment the comedian did. But first, Robby, what's on your radar?
Let's get to it. A civil war of sorts broke out amongst right-wing media political commentators over the weekend after Kevin Roberts, the president of the Conservative Heritage Foundation, released a statement defending Tucker Carlson against attacks from fellow conservatives. Now, Roberts said he would never heed calls for Heritage to distance itself from Carlson. Quote, "There has been speculation that Heritage is distancing itself from Tucker Carlson over the past 24 hours, he wrote on X. I want to put that to rest right now." He also released a video asserting the right to critique the state of Israel while remaining a conservative in good standing. Let's watch part of that.
I'll have more to say on this in the coming days, but today I want to be clear about one thing. Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. And of course, anti-Semitism should be condemned. My loyalty as a Christian and as an American is to Christ first and to America always. When it serves the interests of the United States to cooperate with Israel and other allies, we should do so, with partnerships on security, intelligence, and technology.
Well, why was Roberts being called to distance himself from Carlson in the first place, and why did he feel the need to defend the right to criticize Israel? Well, Carlson recently interviewed Nick Fuentes, a right-wing podcaster and provocateur who harbors anti-Semitic, racist, and explicitly white nationalist views. He has claimed that, quote, Jews are running society, black people should be in prison for the most part. He is avowedly pro-Hitler, questions whether 6 million Jewish people really died in the Holocaust. He has stated his goals thusly, quote, all I want is revenge against my enemies and a total Aryan victory. So one would hope to find Fuentes toiling in relative obscurity, known only to the most studious observers of weird internet subcultures. Unfortunately, Fuentes is shaping up to be the year's major conservative breakout star, well-positioned to be one of the spiritual successors to Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist and organization leader who was murdered on September 10th. Now, Kirk himself despised Fuentes, of course, and worked with other leading conservative voices like Ben Shapiro to sideline and marginalize him. For Fuentes, the resentment was perfectly mutual, and his followers, the Groypers, would harass staffers at Turning Point USA, Kirk's youth organization. But in the wake of Kirk's death, efforts to gatekeep the conservative movement and ensure that Fuentes remains a marginal figure within it are clearly failing. This week, a major line was crossed. Tucker Carlson interviewed Fuentes on his show. The 2-hour conversation has racked up 16 million views on X. Now, many conservatives are furious that Carlson would interview Fuentes in the first place and have called for denunciations, not just of Fuentes, but also of Tucker Carlson for platforming him. Now, while the statement from Heritage initially said only that Roberts abhors Fuentes, he later issued a stronger statement describing and condemning Fuentes' racism and anti-Semitism. He wrote, Nick Fuentes' anti-Semitism is not complicated, ironic, or misunderstood. It is explicit, dangerous, and demands our unified opposition as conservatives. Fuentes knows exactly what he is doing. He is fomenting Jew hatred, and his incitements are not only immoral, they are unchristian, and they risk violence. For those, especially young men, who are enticed by Fuentes and his acolytes online, there is a better way. Now, the background to all this is the increasing salience of the Israel issue, which now divides Republicans somewhat. Conservatives who are older, evangelical, and getting their news from television, from Fox News, Newsmax, etc., tend to be very supportive of Israel and of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and also continued U.S. military support for that country's war on the terrorist group Hamas. Conservatives who are younger, Catholic, and get their news from independent podcasts tend to think that America should be less involved in the Middle East, less financially supportive of Israel, and less tied to the Israeli government's wholesale destruction of Gaza, which has killed nearly 70,000 people. Now, it's perfectly possible to associate with the latter camp while also rejecting, of course, anti-Semitism, racism, and Holocaust denial. In fact, I would argue that is morally correct to have that exact position. But Fuentes is clearly steering the right toward a wholesale embrace of bigotry. Now, conservative critics of Fuentes and Carlson are understandably concerned about this. National Review assailed Carlson, for instance, for conducting an overly friendly chat and failing to challenge any of Fuentes' noxious views. Josh Hammer, a conservative speaker, called for Carlson to be blackballed in addition to Fuentes, and the Babylon Bee, conservative satire site, mocked Carlson relentlessly. Now, the problem for these conservatives is that their side is clearly losing. Fuentes is gaining influence, which means, importantly, that deplatforming Fuentes will not work. In the olden days, when a handful of conservative media organizations ruled the roost, well then, yeah, it would have been trivially easy to simply blackball Fuentes and ensure that he remained an obscure figure. That's no longer possible. The conservative media ecosystem, like the mainstream media ecosystem, frankly, is just too wide open and freewheeling. No central entity directs it. Conservative magazines won't print Fuentes, and conservative TV channels won't invite him on, but he can appeal directly to the people via social media. Moreover, social media platforms themselves, X, YouTube, Facebook, etc., have been explicitly discouraged by conservatives from doing any kind of effective gatekeeping and have largely moved away from this type of content moderation. They're not going to do it. Additionally, all the usual arguments against censorship apply here. Refusing to engage with Fuentes could make his arguments seem powerful, hypnotic, and ultimately more appealing. It appears as if opponents of Fuentes are afraid of a fair fight or lack the courage of their convictions. Younger conservative viewers might think some hidden or dangerous truth is being kept from them. In this way, deplatforming will backfire and guide the right toward the exact sort of conspiratorial thinking that they are trying to stop. In fact, it's fairly clear that attempts to deplatform Fuentes contributed to his own racial radicalization. In his interview with Carlson, Fuentes admitted that his racist, anti-immigrant, and anti-Semitic views became more extreme over time precisely because he was shut down by leading conservatives whenever he tried to raise more innocent questions about U.S. support for Israel. In his telling, conservatives like Shapiro and Dave Rubin, who prided themselves on opposing cancel culture and censorship and wanting to openly debate controversial ideas, utterly refused to platform any sort of debate on U.S. foreign policy with respect to Israel. Now, their hypocrisy caused Fuentes to become more and more extreme. We don't necessarily need to take Fuentes' word for all that, of course. It's possible he secretly harbored awful prejudices all along. In any case, he's achieved escape velocity, he's in conservative discourse now, and pretending he doesn't exist won't make him go away. Now, debating Fuentes could work if it's done correctly. The Carlson interview was, in my view, by Carlson standards, certainly too soft. When Carlson wants to eviscerate someone, he's very good at doing so. See, for instance, what he did to Ted Cruz. He was more than capable of challenging a variety of points that Fuentes made. For instance, at one point, Fuentes evinced an affection for Joseph Stalin, who's a communist and mass murderer who's actually despised by everyone on the right. Unfortunately, Carlson never followed up on that. It's not true, however, that the interview was entirely friendly to Fuentes. At several points, Carlson explained that both his Christian faith and conservative beliefs compelled him to reject that kind of identitarianism, collectivism, and racism that Fuentes regularly practices. He correctly articulated that position that one can and should and must oppose Israel's slaughter of innocent Gazans without blaming it on the Jews as a people. Would have been additionally useful, however, for Carlson to scrutinize Fuentes' actual past statements because Fuentes has not shied away from saying grossly ridiculous things about, for instance, the goodness of Hitler. Podcasters should not avoid Fuentes, but if they talk to him, they should actually grill him on the things he has said. For instance, when Carlson interviewed Cruz, he challenged the senator to state the population of Iran, the country that Cruz fervently desired for the U.S. to attack. Cruz's failure to even ballpark that number made it look like, well, he didn't know what he was talking about. Well, apply that technique to Fuentes, too. So to all the conservatives, in summary, who oppose cancel culture and champion open debate, now is the time to stick to that principle. Don't ostracize people for engaging very bad ideas. Welcome the engagement and participate in it by waging war against those ideas. That is the best weapon we have.
That was thoughtful.
Thank you.
And really good. But I think that when we look at Fuentes, the concern to me is the word rising star next to his name. And as somebody who looks at and really detailed and researches and aligns in some ways with MAGA, like, doesn't it concern you like the same way it would concern me if somebody of that stature and of those ideologies was becoming a quote unquote rising star of a party? Like every time somebody does something that's extremely racist or something that's out of line, I'll be the first one to be like, listen, no. And I think you and I both are that way. So when you say rising star, it makes you concerned about, well, who's in MAGA that's supporting these ideas? What type of people are we developing, culturing, nurturing? Like that's weird to say the least.
No, I am concerned about it. But I think ignoring it and just trying not to feature him anywhere or deplatform him just won't work. It's not an appealing strategy. It is bringing more people to his side. So the only way, if you want to minimize his power, this is my advice to conservatives, would be to challenge him directly. Not indirectly try to cancel the people who interviewed him. Like, you can dislike how Tucker did the interview. I have criticisms of it. But I think being mad at Tucker for doing it betrays a kind of, almost there's a fecklessness to that. Like, just be mad at Nick Fuentes, and don't even be mad at him. Just say, you're wrong, your ideas are bad, here's why they are bad. That's the affirmative way to proceed. It's as simple as that. Instead of this, circuitous, like, well, I want to attack the people who are attacking him or defend the people who are defending him. No. Set all that aside. We're not deplatforming him. Let's just have the actual debate.
From my purview, it looks that Trump is the only glue right now of the MAGA party. And it seems like when he dissolves, obviously he can't run again. I don't know what that looks like when you have like J.D. Vance at the helm.
Well, Nick Fuentes hates J.D. Vance.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't know what
He's married to an Indian woman. Well, he said that's wrong, and he would rather support Gavin Newsom, who has a nice, pretty white family. That's the type
of person we're dealing with.
That's the type of person who's rising in.
So then
in the
what?
ranks, yes.
What? And then they're saying he's following behind Charlie Kirk, and some people should expel that idea immediately. Especially if you tell me that Charlie Kirk is somebody who was like to debate, was open to ideas, was not forwardly trying to. He wanted to engage in debate rather than just push racist ideologies. Like, I think that this person should be kind of shunned out of the party if this is the type of thing they're saying, that J.D. Vance...
Right, I'm not saying I'm shunned. I would say, no, debate him and explain why that is a bad view and a wrong view and a noxious view. And I believe that good ideas will beat bad ideas if they're allowed to be debated in the open. That's my view. We'll find out.
I don't like to cancel people, but I'll say he's one of the people that I say can go and get canceled.
Up next, President Trump sat down with 60 Minutes for an interview. We'll be right back. President Trump sat down with CBS's Nora O'Donnell over the weekend for his first interview with 60 Minutes in 5 years. Just months after parent company Paramount agreed to a $16 million settlement with him over that now infamous interview that 60 Minutes did with Kamala Harris ahead of the 2024 election.
Now, Trump joked that about the settlement several times during the interview, even offering praise for the network's new direction under David Ellison, CEO of Paramount Skydance, and new editor-in-chief Barry Weiss. But the most pressing issue, of course, was the ongoing government shutdown, now in its 34th day, just 1 day shy of the record, with no deal in sight.
That's something about which the president voiced frustration, once again blaming Democrats. Take a listen.
What are you doing as president to end the shutdown?
All we're doing is we keep voting. I mean, the Republicans are voting almost unanimously to end it, and the Democrats keep voting against ending it. You know, they've never had this. This has happened like 18 times before. The Democrats always voted for an extension, always saying, give us an extension, we'll work it out. They've lost their way.
Trump also touched on several foreign policy topics, apparently bringing multiple printed news articles as evidence of the wars that he's ended. And he accused Russia and China of testing nuclear weapons.
I'm saying that we're going to test nuclear weapons like other countries do, yes.
But the only country that's testing nuclear weapons is North Korea.
Well,
China and Russia.
No, Russia's testing nuclear weapons.
My understanding...
And China's testing them too, you just don't know about it.
That would be certainly very newsworthy.
They don't have reporters that are going to be writing about it. We do. No, we're going to test because they test and others test. And certainly North Korea's been testing. Pakistan's been testing.
He also gave an answer that surprised some regarding Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro, possibly hinting at a goal of regime change in that country.
On Venezuela in particular, are Maduro's days as president numbered?
I would say, yeah. I think so, yeah.
Trump was also pressed about the indictments of several of his harshest critics, actions he claims aren't political retribution.
James Comey, John Bolton, Letitia James were all recently indicted. there's a pattern to these names. They're all public figures who have publicly denounced you. Is it political retribution?
You know what? You know who got indicted? The man you're looking at. I got indicted, and I was innocent.
Did you instruct the Department of Justice to go after them?
Not in any way, shape, or form. No, you don't have to instruct them because they were so dirty, they were so crooked, they were so corrupt.
I was just asking, is this retribution on your part?
No, it's the opposite. I think I've been very mild-mannered.
But perhaps the moment that garnered some of the harshest criticism was his support of ICE amid allegations of immigration officials detaining American citizens, deploying tear gas in residential neighborhoods, and destroying property like car windows. Here's what he said.
Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama.
You're okay with those tactics?
Yeah, because you have to get the people out.
Following that segment, it seemed that neither Republicans nor Democrats were entirely happy with the interview. Conservatives online again slammed CBS for the editing choices. Your Voice America host Bill Mitchell wrote on X, breaking, White House drops full 73-minute uncut Trump 60 Minutes interview. CBS slashed it to 27 minutes of spin. 47, that's the president, crushed it. Fake news exposed.
Meantime, former MSNBC host Joy Reid said O'Donnell and CBS didn't push the president hard enough. She wrote on Blue Sky, quote, I tuned in to the 60 Minutes Trump interview with low expectations, and I haven't been surprised. Nora let Trump lie and lie with barely any pushback or provision of correction of facts. Where is the Aussie guy from Axios when we need him?
Is that Jonathan Swan she's talking about? My friend. I thought it was a fine interview.
Yeah,
They asked a wide range of questions. There was pushback. It wasn't, the host wasn't trying, Nora wasn't trying to talk over him and interrupt and correct him at all the times, but she said, you know, for instance, the nuclear testing, she said, well, my understanding is they're not testing, and she pushed back in a variety of ways. I thought it was a fine interview.
Yeah, I didn't.
I haven't had time to compare the edited to the full.
Yeah, I haven't
so
watched the 73 minutes, but from what I saw, I thought she gave him
but
a fair opportunity to talk, and I thought that he strongly responded to a lot of things that I thought would cause more controversy. Like, she brought up specific examples. I know people say with ICE, like, give me the example, when and where, how do you know it's an American citizen? She brought 3 proven examples of things that happened. He's like, yeah. And, you know, he said it firmly. So now you take that with how you want to take it. The president acknowledged specific events and instances. He acknowledged that there's some things he's telling Nora O'Donnell that she doesn't know about China testing nuclear weapons, according to what journalists say. You know what I mean? Is that, and what we understand from the Pentagon, who has not said a word about this, is that they are not. And so the president is saying something different. This is specific on record. So we can only do with it what our president is telling us. I mean, that's the information that we have. So I don't think it was a bad interview. And I don't also think she should have spent her time trying to, you know, go out of her way to prove
Joy
him
Reid
wrong.
is just seeing what she wants to see. Joy Reid is mad about the ownership change. She's mad about everything. She was going to dislike the.
Well, there's some merit to the fact that she doesn't go too far. He just sued them for for that show specifically, $16 million and won, and does not pretend like the Ellises who own CBS, Paramount, Skydance, all of that are not his
But that
good
wasn't
Trump
like
allies
a
and friends.
sycophantic interview.
I know, but she was very, you know, it wasn't a contentious interview at all either. It was just right modestly down the middle, I guess.
I'd also, we got to run, but I would also say that the answer about Maduro doesn't necessarily mean that the U.S. is about to foster some kind of regime change. He just said his presidency might be coming to an end because his own people overthrow him and he's increasingly isolated. Whether we do something about it is something I'm very much against.
Well, we're doing some agitating right now, so it's good to connect those dots easily. I mean, it's easy to connect those dots. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is criticizing her own Republican Party yet again. We'll look at her comments on Bill Maher's show after this. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene criticized her own party and Speaker Mike Johnson over the weekend.
Greene went on to comedian Bill Maher's show and expressed frustration with the fact that the GOP doesn't have an alternative health care solution to Obamacare, which she also bashed. Let's listen.
That's been a lot of my angst. So a lot of the things I say are against my own party, but they're mainly my frustrations in Congress. The Democrats passed Obamacare, but yet the Republicans have never done anything to correct the problems that exist with it. And I blame my own party. That's absolutely wrong. And I don't think it's an easy thing to fix. However, it's something that we should have a plan for. And Mike Johnson, for a month now, cannot give me a single policy idea, and I'm angry about that.
Johnson, however, hit back on Green during an interview with Fox News on Sunday. Anchor Shannon Bream brought up a tweet from Green where she referenced a GOP conference call that she didn't seem too pleased with. She wrote, in part, Johnson said he's got ideas and pages of policy ideas and committees of jurisdiction are working on it, but he refused to give one policy proposal to our GOP conference on our own conference call. Here's Johnson's response.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, that's absurd. Obviously, we're not going to be on a conference call explaining all of our plans and strategies for healthcare reform because they're leaked in real time, literally. Our ideas have been out there for a long time. We're formulating the final plan that will bring down premiums. There's only one party in America that is going to do that. Remember, the Democrats are the ones that created the system that is failing us. They created Obamacare. They said it was going to bring down costs. It's done exactly the opposite. Premiums, by some estimates, are up 60% since Obamacare was created in 2010.
Speaker is a very slick operator, almost a robotic-like efficiency. He never gets flustered by attacks from various directions, but I think I have to give this one to MTG. He's saying that we're not going to say what our health care plan is to our members because it might get leaked. Why would we care if the details get leaked?
Also,
isn't the health care plan going to be a good idea? Don't we want people to find out about it?
If there's proof that Republicans have a strategy on health care, I think that would be the most brilliant thing they could possibly leak at this time in the middle of chaos and a government shutdown. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's story is interesting, right? Because it's people that have mixed reviews about Obamacare. I think that it was a good thing. She thinks that it was a bad thing. She talks about the root of it and her own family's health care costs going from $800, she says, to about $2,400. So she said the middle business owners, middle class people got crushed while a lot of people did get health insurance that were underneath the middle class. And so their balance, a good thing. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But if we don't figure out how to get a lot of people on health insurance and not have people just in the emergency room that taxpayers end up paying for anyway, right? Then we are not having a good and effective healthcare system. And so there has to be a conversation to be had, whether you like the last decade of healthcare choices we made doesn't have anything to do with right now. They need to come to the table and have a dialogue about the way forward. And if Mike Johnson actually has ideas other than pass a clean CR, then he should say them out loud and the public should all know what he's saying so we can actually point to Democrats and say, you are holding this up.
Right.
You are, because the president from his 60 Minutes interview doesn't seem that he's having any dialogue about health care. He wants them to pass a clean CR. Mike Johnson's saying he has ideas, but he can't say. And so that's not acceptable, especially when people are looking at the effects of the government shutdown, especially on top of the effects of now that enrollment season is open, healthcare rising and costs rising. I think that those things are both stressful to the average American.
Yeah, Obamacare is a bad system. It replaced a bad system, and we don't have a good system to replace it. And I wish Congress would work on this more. So I agree with MTG. Also, can I say something?
Yes, please.
She looked really good on Bill Maher. I liked her outfit. I liked her sense of style.
Crush it on MTG.
I'm just gonna admit that.
President Trump threw a great Gatsby-themed Halloween party over the weekend, hours before millions of Americans lost their SNAP benefits. Stick around.
Welcome back to Rising. Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
We're talking about The Great Gatsby, not something I thought I would be talking about, but here we are. I hope everyone had a good Halloween. The president certainly did. He spent his weekend throwing a Great Gatsby-themed party at Mar-a-Lago. Now, The Great Gatsby, for those who might have missed the symbolism in high school English, is a story about excess, illusion, and the moral decay behind wealth. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote of the rich, saying, quote, "They were careless people. They smashed up things and creatures, and they retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness and let other people clean up the mess they had made." So the question is, was the Gatsby theme deliberate as a metaphor or just completely tone deaf? Because while guests sipped champagne under chandeliers, millions of Americans were losing SNAP benefits amid one of the longest government shutdowns in U.S. history. And it doesn't stop at the costume party. The White House is collecting money for a new Trump ballroom, a $300 million project offering wealthy donors the chance to stay anonymous even when their companies have business before his administration, according to the New York Times. The optics are grim. Major healthcare firms seeking Medicare favors. Wall Street powerhouses looking for trade advantages. Even NVIDIA's CEO admitting to donating to the project. So the message is loud and clear. Loyalty gets rewarded behind closed doors. Ethics experts have raised concerns about these donations, noting that they could lead to special treatment for donors or even test federal prohibitions on agencies accepting private gifts. Trump insists the ballroom is apolitical and that he'll contribute his own money, but the secrecy surrounding certain donors only deepens suspicion. Meanwhile, a Yahoo YouGov poll shows that 60% of Americans disapprove of how Trump is handling the economy, and only a third approve. The country's struggling, and yet the president is hosting a GATSBY-style gala, while food assistance for 42 million people hangs in limbo. Even California Governor Gavin Newsom weighed in on X, writing, quote, Donald Trump hosted a great GATSBY party while SNAP benefits were about to disappear for 42 million Americans. He does not give a about you. Donald Trump once built his brand by connecting with voters, promising to shake up Washington and level the playing field, but now he's building a ballroom instead of rebuilding that bond. Because when you spend your weekend partying in your own marble palace while people skip meals, and when you take favors from the rich to fund your personal projects, you don't just lose trust, you prove that you never understood who you were talking to in the first place. So I just think a lot of times it's about optics and being out of touch right now. To see that a lot of people, and 40 million is not a small number, people are trying to figure out how they're going to get groceries for the rest of this month. A lot of them disabled, some of them veterans, some of them young people, some people who are in between jobs in this rough economy that he said he was going to fix. At the same time, he's throwing a lavish, tone-deaf party about the rich and famous who can constantly...
Halloween.
Yeah, but it's not Halloween was the eve of SNAP benefits expiring. I mean, if President Obama used to golf, and then he golfed on Saturday, by the way, so he's not that concerned with the current state of affairs, it seems, from optics-wise. If President Obama would do the same thing, it would be a problem. We would talk about, oh, he's in Martha's Vineyard, I can't believe. I mean, plenty of critics did. You might not have, but plenty of people did. So I just want to be clear that this is how our president spent the weekend when we're in dire circumstances for a lot of people. So that poll that came out just this weekend said 60% of people are blaming Trump, thinking this is a bad economy, and this is what he's doing. So while you say you don't connect the $300 million project or just enjoying a simple Halloween to American tax dollars, you still should clearly see there's a connection between how the president is living and what he ran on, aligning with these people and leaving people in the dust who are the most vulnerable in our country.
I take a different lesson from the story of The Great Gatsby, which is one of my favorite novels. I consider it to be the quintessential American novel, which is about the American dream. And Gatsby is no one and rises only from his own hard work and self entrepreneurship to wealth and privilege and power that he built for himself, and then falls as well because of his own hubris and obsession with Daisy and other things. So in America, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and
with
rise,
dirty money and
for your hubris fall.
You're painting a very nice picture of Gatsby.
So all these people who need, well, Gatsby is great. I love Gatsby. I love the book. I love the character.
This is the author, F. Scott Fitzgerald, that wrote a summation of what he wrote the book.
So people who are reliant on government handouts for their food maybe should channel a little bit of that American spirit and work to better themselves and not be reliant on the generous taxpayers at all turns for their money.
Let's put SNAP to the side. The government is shut down. Air traffic controllers who are reliant on using their skill to organize plane flights throughout our country are now still not getting paid for the fourth week in a row. One of them, very popularly, because we had a News Nation special, said they're working DoorDash to pay for their kid to go to college. That's an example, present day, of DoorDash jumping in and saying, we'll help you out because our government will not. And the president is having a nice day. This is not a government handout. This is a man with probably a six-figure job that's trying to put a kid through an expensive college, right? That's the American dream also. They can't achieve it, but you're partying over there, spending hundreds of thousands probably on this life. I mean, did you see the party? There were dancers coming out of champagne flutes, probably 10 feet, 20 feet in the air. Like, this is what the president is spending the money on, while people who are not even asking for SNAP benefits, who work in our government, just getting things done so that people could travel to his party
safely. Do air traffic control services need to be provided by the government?
But they are. Here we are. You're asking, so because they are.
The core function of government to be.
Should the president handle this right now, though? Should the president handle this right now? We're here and we do.
The president
do you fly around? How did everyone? He's not.
He wants to get out of the government shutdown.
He literally is not. He went on 60 Minutes and said, "I can't believe, Democrats aren't doing anything.
Well, frankly,
we want to pass a clean
it's
CR.
Congress's job.
No, he got involved early on and then played games. The Democrats wanted to have a meeting with him. He canceled the
playing
meeting.
games. Democrats are playing games.
No, he's literally canceled the meeting with
Republicans wanna
Democrats.
vote for the exact same thing, and Democrats are playing politics and want a bunch of extra goodies thrown in. And they're Republicans saying
Not
no
goodies
extra
for people not to pay
The Obamacare
$2,000
subsidies are extra goodies.
It's
Those
not
were
goodies for
supposed to expire.
$2,000 for health care. Like, people need health
The
care in this
Democrats
country.
want to do a policy change.
You just heard Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No.
So even MAGA is split on this if anybody follows Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a problem. You can't put a Band-Aid over healthcare and just say, oh, we'll talk about it later. Later is right now. We're literally in open enrollment. It started over the weekend as well. People simultaneously are trying to figure out what their health costs will be. Some people are going to watch it go from $900 to about $1,900, which is completely uncomfortable and unfeasible, especially in an economy that people are blaming the president for not being good.
Fix the healthcare system. We all agree on
So
that.
what's the president
that
doing?
That needs to be done separately than simply subsidizing the failing system as part of an effort to fund the government. We should fund the government, and eventually Democrats will see reason and give in, I predict, and agree to fund exactly, and then we'll be like, well, why did we have to wait a month when SNAP benefits expired and air traffic controllers didn't have paychecks or whatever? We could have just done it a month earlier if Democrats agreed to it. That's how it's going to end, and as soon as the sooner Democrats get that through their heads and just vote for this thing, then we'll be out of this calamity that is not even that bad.
If you saw in my reading, we talked about how people feel about the president and how they don't think he's doing a great job with the economy. So if he's the deal maker, he also ran on that. I get things done. Why are we still here? He should be making a deal and having a conversation internally. He can make a bunch of international.
The deal on the table.
He's asking. Wait, let me finish. He's asking for international Nobel Peace Prize for his deal making, and he can't even sit down with people that are in his own country that all want the same exact goals, right? Which is prosperity, happiness for their family, all the basic American values that we all tout on both sides of the aisle. And he needs to have a conversation with them.
They've had a conversation.
He is at the helm of the Republican Party.
So
no,
a
conversation is not my way or the highway. It's not clean CR or nothing. A conversation is, okay, let's start talking about this healthcare policy, and here's the Mike Johnson of the world who said they have all these ideas. Let's share them with Democrats so that they can know, and then they both should come to the table and tell us, here's what we're going to do about healthcare, and we're also going to pass a clean CR. That is a way forward.
I think we'll sit here and wait until Democrats get on board, and that's going to happen eventually. The New York mayoral election is just one day away. Coming up, what President Trump and Hakeem Jeffries have to say about Zohran Mamdani possibly becoming the Big Apple's next mayor. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries delivered a bombshell ahead of Election Day, saying he does not see New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani as the future of the party, despite endorsing the Democratic Socialist late last month.
That revelation coming during an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper over the weekend. But while Jeffries pushed back on the idea that Mamdani and his agenda were not the future of the party, some of their priorities do seem aligned. Let's take a listen.
Do you see Mamdani as the future of the Democratic Party?
No, I think the future of the Democratic Party is going to fall, as far as we're concerned, relative to the House Democratic Caucus and members who are doing a great work all across the country. As Democrats, we're going to focus on lowering the high cost of living, on fixing our broken healthcare system that Republicans continue to make worse.
Well, Jeffries also pushed back on the idea that keeping the increasingly popular Mamdani popular among Democrats at arm's length might give Republicans an opening for attacking heading into the midterms. It comes as last week Axios reported congressional Republicans have created a, quote, battle plan to weaponize Mamdani as the new socialist face of the Democratic Party ahead of 2026. The NRCC even put out a memo highlighting policy areas described as anti-police, pro-defund, anti-capitalism, and anti-Israel extremist. And President Trump took it a step further during his interview with 60 Minutes, seemingly threatening to withhold funding if Mamdani wins. Take a listen.
Zohran Mamdani, 34-year-old Democratic socialist. He's the
communist, not socialist, communist.
But what if Mamdani becomes mayor?
It's going to be hard for me as the president to give a lot of money to New York because if you have a communist running New York, all you're doing is wasting the money you're sending there.
Tapper pressed Jeffries about the potential liability Mamdani poses to Dems. Here's what he said.
Are you concerned about Republicans using him as a lightning rod so as to hurt your ability to win back the House in 2026?
No, the lightning rod, in terms of what's going to impact the ability of either side to win control of the House or hold control of the House in 2026 is going to be the failure of Republicans to actually deliver on the promises that they've made and to actively make life worse for everyday Americans.
Now, following that interview, The Hill reached out to the Mamdani campaign for a comment. So far, they have not gotten back to us, but a CNN reporter did throw in a surprise question about it during an impromptu interview. Let's take a listen.
Hakeem Jeffries was asked this morning if you're the future of the Democratic Party. He said no.
Good to know.
Do you have a response?
No, I'm focused on the next 2 days.
Do you think you're the future of the Democratic Party?
I don't dare predict the future. That's why I'm out here canvassing to deal with my anxiety to get through the tape of the future of 9 p.m. on Tuesday.
I mean, come on, Robby. They're playing politics here. It doesn't make sense. Everyone. Like, it doesn't make sense for, just like you say, President Trump, he doesn't answer questions like, oh, yes, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to, like, in what world would it make sense right before an election, 2 days or a day now before an election, or as you walk into midterms to say, yes, this person and all their ideas, even the ones we don't agree with, are the face of the Democratic Party. I think that that would be silly on Hakeem Jeffries' part. He understands that. Mamdani would be silly to try to proclaim that ahead of this because he's allowed to.
He's not trying to do that, but
yeah, he said I can't predict the future.
Well,
like everyone is playing politics right now, and so are Republicans because they want to try to paint Mamdani, understanding how liberal New York is, specifically New York City, and how blue it is. They want to try to paint that as the whole country, and that may or may not be the case. I think Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats that are all over the country have a lot of work to do about what the messaging is. I don't necessarily think it needs to be what Mamdani is saying to New York voters. People were open to try something new there. Wanted him to, he spoke to housing, he spoke to cost, he spoke to groceries, things that people really care about. We just saw that poll about the economy that I brought up in the last block. I think that helps him to keep talking about, but I think that Hakeem Jeffries and the rest of Democrats across the country have to figure out the messaging before they start proclaiming what it is.
Mamdani's ideas to fix cost of living issues are absurd and ridiculous and have failed everywhere they've been tried. Hakeem Jeffries, I don't think had a very satisfactory answer there. Obviously, Republicans want to portray Mamdani as the future of the Democratic Party. Democratic socialists, liberal, far-left people, progressives also want Mamdani to be the future of the party. So really, if Jeffries doesn't want that, and it's clear he doesn't, because it's clear he's much, much more moderate than Mamdani, and he thinks Mamdani, I believe he does think Mamdani could be bad for Democrats nationally, not in New York, but nationally. But so he should just say that. He should just say, he won the Democratic primary, so he's the Democratic candidate, and of course we support him in New York City. We don't think his views are necessarily the right views for the National Party, if that's what he thinks.
No, but
or he could say Mamdani's views are correct for the national parties and will be embracing far-left populist socialism because the kind of neoliberal establishment Democratic politics of, for instance, Kamala Harris have been explicitly repudiated, so we are looking for something farther left. He should just say what he actually thinks. What he actually thinks is, I have no idea. No one get mad at me. I don't want to alienate Mamdani voters. I don't want to alienate non-Mamdani voters. I'll just say nothing, which is why these interviews that they do on cable news are increasingly just useless, and politicians like him are useless. They'll never say anything profound or interesting, and it's just a mess. Mamdani is fine to say that I'm focused on the New York race. Don't coronate me as some broader national figure right now, although of course he's going to aspire to be like AOC, punching above his weight in terms of the importance of the national discourse, and Republicans will treat him as such. So yes, if a Democratic Party that embraces Mamdani will face accusations of being anti-police and pro-communism and all the rest.
I have not been lacking any criticism of the Democratic Party and where they currently stand. I'm completely on the same page as you as far as, like, with this much time that has passed since November 2024, why is there no party positioning on a national level that actually makes sense to any of the voters who were let down by the establishment?
They don't know what they
Now, there's
think.
people like Nina Turner, who is from Ohio and very outspoken on social media.
I know her very well. I do a show with her on Thursdays.
Okay, like her very much.
We talk every day.
Okay, great. Well, please tell my girl I said hello. Yeah. So I like her positioning. She's very firm, saying that people need to lean into Mamdani. This is a bad move. This is like the Bernie Sanders thing all over again, where he had rallied up a lot of people of different ages and who thought that people should lean further in, and then they isolated people, went with the establishment candidate, that was Joe Biden, and then here we are with the last decade of turnout for national politics on the Democratic side. So she feels strongly about that. But I think before Hakeem Jeffries steps forward and makes some grandiose statement about what the next steps of the party and say his true feelings. He needs to make sure that they're on brand with the messaging. They have to have a conversation on brand with the messaging. He needs to understand what Kamala, what Newsom, what everybody's trying to do with the party, and then say what he thinks from there. I don't think that they've actually had dialogue, which is the concerning part to me.
He's just not really the right person to decide because he doesn't have a lot of credibility with Democratic voters right now. He's not, I don't think he's the right person to play the role of deciding which direction. I mean, no central figure should decide the direction of the Democratic Party. Democratic voters should do that.
But you know that'll be clipped out, like we saw Kamala on The View, right? The one thing you say, she said, oh, I wouldn't change a thing that Biden did, and I'm paraphrasing. Right. That got clipped out and used in every single Republican ad leading into every single election around the country. And so if he says Mamdani is the face of the Democratic Party very firmly and just say that was what he believes, that'll be clipped out and used in every single Republican ad, even in moderate Democratic places that like somebody who's down the middle, right? We have to remember that this is a big country full of different candidates, and when we take one statement out of context and run it in political ads, then people get terrified.
Republicans are going to be talking about Mamdani as if he is the leader of the Democratic Party alongside AOC.
And that's a good strategy.
We're just going to...
That's a good strategy.
That's what is going to take place.
So Democrats need to figure out their strategy, but if Hakeem Jeffries speaks out of turn, which I don't know whose turn it is, it seems like AOC would be very pleased to speak out of turn right now, then I think that he feels that will put him in a bad position for the midterms as the person who made that call, because he's constantly being interviewed, especially right now as the government shut down. I think that would be a bad move for him. So they're playing politics.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I guess. It's just the Democrats need to pick a direction. I mean, they're at war with themselves. Republicans have this problem in slightly different ways. You know, the two parties represent wide ranges of factions on their own sides, on right and left, and the Democratic Party's problem is this kind of broader split between still quite left on cultural issues, but somewhat more moderate on economic issues, and also just not culturally associated with the left. That faction, the neoliberal faction, the neoliberal progressive faction, and the hard left of Bernie, AOC, Mamdani, and there's a lot of enmity between those two. That divide is very real, and the left people keep saying, well, we tried it your way numerous times and we lost. When are we going to try it our way in terms of
and
the national strategy?
And they have to listen to younger people. Like, there was a record turnout of young early voters in New York, and so if we talk about what the disconnect was with the Democratic Party.
People.
Well, yeah, you talk about listening to the youth and getting old people out of Congress all the time.
I don't like younger people or old people.
Okay, well, the younger people spoke up.
Exactly.
No, only exactly millennials.
The millennials should run things for the foreseeable future. It's our turn. Let us do it.
President Trump had some harsh words on Truth Social for late night comedian Seth Meyers. We'll be right back with more on that.
President Trump bashed late night host Seth Meyers after one of the comedian's segments.
Meyers discussed Trump's speech to the U.S. Navy aboard the aircraft carrier USS George Washington. The late-night host made fun of this specific moment. Take a look.
I know a lot about these ships. I know a lot about these things building. I want to know catapults. Which is better, the electric or the steam? They're spending billions of dollars to build stupid electric. And the problem, when it breaks, you have to send up to MIT, get the most brilliant people in the world, fly them out. It's ridiculous. The steam, they said they can fix it with a hammer and a blowtorch. And it works just as well, if not better. And I love the sight of that beautiful steam pouring off that deck with the electric. You don't have that.
And here was Meyers' reaction.
Move over, handshakes. There's about to be a new Wikipedia article. Guy spends more time thinking about catapults than Wile E. Coyote. Next. Gonna start complaining about how our troops don't tie themselves to rockets anymore. We used to strap our soldiers to the rockets and they loved it. But then everything got woke and they said you can't tie a person to a rocket, but we miss those days and we're bringing them back. I'll try my best to explain the gist of what he's talking about in a new segment we're calling Seth Translates Trump to English.
Trump then blasted Meyers on Truth Social, writing, Seth Meyers of NBC may be the least talented person to perform live in the history of television. In fact, he may be the worst to perform live or otherwise. I watched his show the other night for the first time in years. In it, he talked endlessly about electric catapults on aircraft carriers, which I complain about as not being as good as much less expensive steam catapults. On and on he went, a truly deranged lunatic. Why does NBC waste its time and money on a guy like this? No talent, no ratings, 100% anti-Trump, which is probably illegal. I would like to say that I would like to admit, and I'm going to be very embarrassed here, that I don't know enough about electric versus steam catapults. I wish I knew more, because this is very much something that fits within my wheelhouse. Catapults, medieval architecture, medieval weaponry, siege warfare. So I was pleased to see Trump's enthusiasm for this subject and to express a strong preference. I do not know enough. I'm not informed to agree with or contradict him, but I like the spirit. But I didn't even really mind the Wile E. Coyote joke.
It was funny.
From Seth Meyer.
He tried to really hold it in. He tried to
chuckle,
curl his lips in.
Because I like Looney Tunes and I think they're funny. This was not the kind of pathological anti-Trump humor that I find cringe and that he's inveighed against in the past. So I would not, on this basis, have decreed Seth Meyers to be subject to being propelled out of the castle by a steam catapult.
I like that you said don't know enough. I wish that our president would use those words often. He obviously doesn't know.
Well, maybe he does know him.
No, he doesn't know enough about late night TV. He said that it was live, and Seth Meyers can't do a good job live twice.
I'm glad he knows.
Seth Meyers is not live. He doesn't tape the show live. He said this is the worst live performer. This man's not a live performer. It's a taped television show. Every single late night show is taped around 4 p.m.
Well,
he's been on plenty of them.
As if live.
Okay, but it's not a live television show. It's not like he's performing
This is
live
actually
in front of an
live.
audience. This is live right now. It is what it is. So maybe he should just wait a second before he goes on rampages on Truth Social. You know, it reminds me of when you got to talk to your grandmother. Like sometimes my grandma would be in the comments of some of my friends like, oh, you need to pull your shirt up or whatever. I'm like, Grandma, get off Instagram. I don't want you on there. President Trump sometimes might have to pause on the commentary on social media. He's declaring things like other countries are testing nuclear warheads, and they're actually not. And then the Pentagon's not responding. He can wait a second on social media.
All I know
that's my biggest thing
is
right
that
here with this.
Defending the kingdom is the foremost job of the leader.
Have a kingdom.
And defending it from the barbarians at the gates, from Mongol hordes or Turks or whatever it is, requires catapults. So I am glad the leader of our great nation has a functional understanding of how catapults work. This would have been very welcome news.
And I'm going to just take the other position
people.
on this entire argument is that he doesn't understand that his own party doesn't like to cancel people. So if he would please stop trying to cancel late night hosts that say one thing that he doesn't like about them, we can all move forward. He can continue talking about catapults. They can continue clowning him for that speech, and then we could all move on, right?
The catapults just got 10 feet longer. Anyway, that does it for us today on Rising Live. Aren't we having fun? But please look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so that you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts, and we will be back with you tomorrow. See you then.